And we can start. So first of all, just slowly. I start thanking all the people connected today. Welcome to our webinar. GMI is doing a lot of webinar in this period, and a lot of others will be done in the coming weeks. Today's subject, and we are ranging from several topics, starting from functional safety to intrinsic safety, as well as application of our product like relays, safety relays, and safety power supplies. Today's topic is functional safety assessment. Let me take Tino, the control of the slides.
Okay, let me approve it. Here you
yes.
go. You're ready to go.
So, as said, today's topic is functional safety assessment. It's for me the first time, so I will be very much interested in listening what Tino will tell us. Just some few information. During the registration and during the last time we have done this webinar, we collected the questions. So at the end of the presentation, at the end of the webinar, we will have a question and answer. So we will answer to this question. As well, you have the opportunity by selecting, by working out with the question and answer box to raise question during the webinar. I will stop Tino asking the question in order to have the possibility, the chance to answer live to all questions. Just before to start, I would like to give a short introduction first to the company. First to the people you have in front of you right now. I'm trying to get control of the presentation, but I have some difficulties, you know.
Doesn't work?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm not able to change.
Because I got remote you have remote control on, so you are controlling my screen.
Yeah, I see the message. You are controlling Tino's screen. But this is not true because I'm not really able to.
Okay, why don't I take the control model and I'll just run you through the slides. That doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you for that. So myself and Tino are here with you today. I'm Mauro Perego and I'm sales director for GM International. And Tino is our functional safety director. I'm here in Italy at the GMI headquarters, while Tino is in Belgium. So welcome to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. You can go to the next, Tino. I'm going just to give a short introduction to the company before to leave the speech to Tino. So what's the function? What the GMI is doing? We are designing and producing field interface with let me say two main characteristics. We cover the two aspects of safety. One, it is functional safety, SEAL, certified object, which is one of the topic of today, and the second one is intrinsic safety. You find GMI product in many automation packages, like ranging from DCS to marine, to BMS, HIPS, and so on and so on. GMI has 40-year experience, and we have a headquarters here in Italy, not far from Milano, where we do all research and development as well as all production of our product. Of course, we are in Italy, but as a main headquarters, on the other hand, we are present worldwide. You can go on, Tino. Okay, of course, as said, we are producing here in Italy. We use state-of-the-art technology to produce and to select component because, of course, when dealing with hazardous location and functional safety, quality is one of the most important characteristics of a product, and that's why also we test 100% of our production before the components leave the company. The company is, of course, certified to produce SEAL 3 equipment concerning functional safety, as well as all certification necessary to produce and to deliver hazardous location components. Go ahead, Tino. This is a short overview of our product. What we do it is intrinsic safety, a barrier, safety relay, isolator, power supplies. We have multiplexer for temperature and low-level signals. We have customized termination board for to connect our equipment to main DCS and DSD systems. We have hard multiplexer as well as surge protection and some loop indicators. And all of these products either are functional safety related, SEAL certified, either or suitable for SEAL application, or they are suitable for hazardous location, or both together. Finally, we have this functional safety training and service department. Tino is our director, and through this department we deliver worldwide consultancies and mainly functional safety trainings to qualify engineers on functional safety, but Tino will say something more on this. Unfortunately, due to this COVID situation, we are not in the position today, or we were not in the position until yesterday to deliver trainings. On the other hand, the situation is luckily improving, and we are able from now on to deliver this training again. As said, we are present worldwide with our subsidiaries, with our partner, and we have thousands of installations. And as said, we deliver this training, functional safety training, and we do that in a normal situation of 20 training per year. You can go the next, Tino. Yeah. As said again, worldwide present, meaning that we deliver our components directly or through different channels to several end users. We are in the AVL of end user, as well as we have almost all certification necessary to deliver worldwide. As you know, every country has its specific certification, and we cover almost all requirements. These are just a short list of our kind of customers, as well as a list of our customers. Just for your information, you will receive the PDF file of this presentation as well. You will have the chance to see and to watch that on GMI YouTube channel. I stop here the short presentation and I leave the speech to Tino. As said, you have the chance to raise questions. Do that if something is not clear. I will interact with Tino to provide you answer online.
Okay,
Tino,
just before I start, can you stop the remote control? Okay, that's it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mauro. Thank you for the introduction, and also thank you for GMI again to give us the opportunity to do these webinar sessions. We have done many before. All of them are recorded, are all available on the GMI YouTube channel. Even this one will be recorded again, although I have done FSA or functional safety assessments before. We try to record every session we do because sometimes we say different things or people ask different questions. So it all It's all depending on maybe some of your interaction on how some of these slides will be explained. Right. So the first slide to start with is the backbone of functional safety. It's all about a life cycle model. And the life cycle model, as you see here on this slide, is nothing more than a systematic approach on how you will run your projects. How you will start from your hazard risk analysis, which is the first block over here. We call this phase number 1. And phase number 1, for those who do know the IEC 61511 standard, that is all described in this chapter 8. From there onwards, we have here LOPA, we have here safety requirement specifications, etc., etc. Now, the topic for today is not about the life cycle. The topic for today is about how can we make sure that people are not making human mistakes. In other words, how can we increase the quality? By increasing the quality, it's of your activities you are doing throughout this life cycle. So it can be from a design engineer to an operator or maybe a maintenance engineer. Any single one plays a certain role in this life cycle, and clearly every human interaction can always have a potential mistake. So one of the items, what is mainly changed in addition to is we are trying to make sure that functional safety assessments will be done throughout the life cycle. And I just point you out here between phase 3 and 4, you can see here in the middle, it's showing you stage number 1. And stage number 1 is the first moment where the IEC 61511 standard will recommend as a normative requirement, that means it's a must-do, that you will carry out a functional safety assessment. The way I set up this webinar is as followed. I am trying to give you practical hints per stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because we have 5 stages, and every single stage is a normative requirement as per edition 2. When I say edition 2, that was released in 2016. If some people, because I've seen some names coming in from the USA, that is for you the ISA 61511, which has been approved in September 2018. But it's the same reference of the IEC 61511. So what is functional safety assessment? Well, I already gave you some of the answers, but what is it and why do we need this? The purpose of any functional safety assessment, and now comes a keyword for you, is to have an independent expert judgment. And the word independent is very important. You cannot make a judgment of your own work because you're not independent of your own brain. But if you have independent requirements, as a standard will require this, the purpose is someone will do the job. Of course, he or she will have to check the quality of the work that they deliver, but there will be an independent expert judgment on top of that that needs to make a judgment to find out how good or what is the quality of the activity results that he or she has been achieving. Now, based on a procedure, of course, the functional safety assessment, it is not just like wishful thinking. There will be a very clear procedure to say how and what will be assessed. And also, of course, the expert judgment, as I will give you some hints later on, will very much depend, of course, on the expertise of the senior expert, but I will come back on this later. And all of this needs to be described in a functional safety management plan. And an FSM, or functional safety management, is another requirement from a standard which became normative as of edition 2. Very shortly, any supplier of a product or a service shall have a functional safety management scheme in place and prove how adequate they are using it. And that's, of course, a real strong statement. And in that FSM will be the functional safety assessments described. Expert judgment will be based, of course, on technical expertise, on the 61511 expertise, application, operational expertise, etc., etc. And what is now the outcome of the functional safety assessment judgment report? Well, it needs to prove that the functional safety and the safety integrity for every single safety loop or every single safety implemented function for your complete safety implemented systems are met. That's the key target or objective of a functional safety assessment. As I showed you before on the life cycle picture, there are 5 stages. Now, I want to go back in time and I want to talk very briefly about the edition 1 of the 6.15.11, which came alive in 2004 and was replaced by edition 2 in 2016. We also had stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mentioned in the standard, but they made, strangely enough, by edition 1, they made only the following statement. They said minimum requirement, normative, that you will do minimum 1 functional safety assessment, but the latest you could wait was until you will introduce a hazard in your production facilities. In other words, for those who are familiar with the IEC 6.11 standard, minimum you could wait, or the maximum you could wait, excuse me, is stage number 3, which is right after you have done your site acceptance test. Now they have taken this out by the edition 2, and now they give normative requirement to all stages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And coming back here on the membership now of such an FSA team, well, the team is typically more than 1 person, of course, because the work can be too large or can be too many things to make assessments from. Now, minimum 1 person needs to be senior, needs to be competent, and needs to be independent. As I show you here on the second last bullet, needs to be independent, meaning not involved in the design team for stage 1, 2, 3, and not involved in the operation and maintenance phase. That's mainly for our end users, operating companies listening to this webinar. So mainly for you, not involved in the same operations and the same maintenance of the same sys, and that is normative required for stage 4 and 5. Senior competent member requirement, as I just mentioned you. Of course, they don't describe or they don't give you some details. What does it mean senior? What is the definition of senior? So that's not defined in the standard, but clearly someone fresh of the university, maybe only working for 6 months, if I would do an inspection myself, I would have doubts that I would call him a senior expert judgment if he would be part of my team. So the number of senior competent members of an FSA team may of course vary on such items like what is the size of the application they have to make a judgment from, or the project they have to make a judgment from. Also what type of technologies they are looking at. I've been part of some assessment teams, and I was only there myself personally for the safety PLC bit inside their SIS. We had some specialists on valves, we have some specialists on the reactors with us. So we all had our different niche of expertise. And of course, there was one taking the lead as a senior member, as he was actually leading that team to make a function safety assessment. And then we all had to come to an agreement to make a judgment on how this project was in compliance, yes or no, with the requirements from the 6.15.11. Of course, the person that is senior and competent needs to be competent in the items that they make the judgment from. That is a no-brainer, I would say. But the FSA team shall review in detail the work carried out. And that's a very important item, meaning that actually the function safety assessors or the expert judgment is mainly done based on the verification reports which other people already have done. So typically what we will do is we will do some spot checks. Sometimes we will redo some tests if we don't trust or don't understand how it was being recorded as a verification report. So it all depends again on the competency of the expert judgment on how will he or she accept the documents or the reports or the results that they are trying to judge. And of course, that also needs to be part of the planning, safety planning, and is part of your function safety management, which we already said in the previous slide. Right, I got a poll question coming up.
Yes, we have a question for you. So, Tino, I launched the polling, and in the meantime, you explain the question as.
Okay, I got a question here for all the participants that are logged in today. As per the IEC 6.15.11 requirements for stage 1, 2, and 3, so clearly the design phase. I mean, stage 3 is right after your FAT. That means after you have done your system integration or your manufacturer build the system. So the senior competent person needs to be, and now is the question for you. He or she needs to be independent from a design company. That's the first answer, A. B, needs to be a third-party independent specialist. Choice number C, or answer number C, needs to be independent from a design team, but is allowed from the same company. So that means that is a different statement than statement number A or letter A. Then D, a senior member of the same design team of that sys, or the last choice is none of the above. So we are waiting a few more seconds, I would say, tomorrow, because I see that nearly 60% has voted, so that's good.
Okay, don't be shy. Okay, I will stop the voting right now, and I will also share the result to all. I think you can read that, Tino.
Okay, so we have 17%, which is nearly 20% of the group here, is saying needs to be independent from a design company. Actually, that is not what the standard is saying. It needs to be independent from a design team, but it doesn't mean that he or she needs to be from a different company. I know maybe some large companies, some engineering contractors, they may have different design teams, and there is no problem for them to make an assessment from each other's work as long they were not working in the same design team. That is why the biggest group here answered, nearly 70% answered independent from design team, but is allowed from the same company. That's a very good statement and a very correct statement. We only had a small group here, about 10% is thinking needs to be from a third-party independent specialist. Well, that's not true. The standard does not require this at all. And of course, none of the above was also about 10%. That is not correct. Okay, I will end the poll here, and I will go to the next one. If I can do that, here we go. So going back on our functional safety life cycle of the 6, 15, 11, I highlighted here with the yellow arrow stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And the next 3 slides, which are now coming, I will go step per step. What is stage 1? What is stage 2? What is stage 3? What kind of documents do you need? What kind of, let's say, items do we try to judge? And I try to give it like a practical approach, which is not really coming out of the standard. It is purely based on, let's say, long-term relation on experience with projects with different companies, different countries. So start first with stage number 1. After your safety requirement specification is complete, a stage 1 functional safety assessment is a normative must-do requirement from the standard. So once that very important document is complete, and before, and I clearly highlighted here before in capital letters, before the engineering contractors will issue that document to the companies to build that type of system, well, someone needs to make an expert judgment. That will be the senior competent person that is not involved. Now, you can think about, if I would read an SRS and I'm not part of that design team, how can I make a judgment that what I read is correct if I do not know the prehistory, if I do not know the requirements? So somehow they need some information. So typically, and now I'm going to my second bullet, what is typically needed? Well, first of all, if I would be your functional safety assessor for stage 1, and I would come into your project, the first thing I would ask you, can I have, for instance, all your documents related to your process hazard analysis, together with your HAZOP report? To be quite frankly with you, it's typically only the HAZOP reports we get from some engineering teams. But then I would ask him, can I also have the HAZOP leader who was part of the entire HAZOP? Can I have him also as part of my team? Because then he or she can actually help me to explain what the HAZOP report has been recorded, or why have they come to that decision. That's the first thing. Second bullet, in case LOPA has been used, well, if LOPA has been used, as you know, LOPA is very based on numbers. I can read all day LOPA reports without any explanation. I have honestly no clue where those numbers are coming from. Why did they pick that number? So again, I need to have the LOPA specialist or the person, the author who has actually made that LOPA report. I need to have him part of my team to help me review, because my HAZOP report, my PHA documents, my LOPA, those 2 documents will be the reason why you selected an additional safety implemented function. And only then I can start to make a judgment, the description of the required additional risk reduction, if that is adequate, yes or no. Of course, the SRS will be checked against the bullet list from the IEC 611, and we have 29 items per safety loop. We do have an SRS webinar also available, so if you go to the YouTube channel, you may see some, or you may require one or inquire one of the SIL manuals or SIS manuals from GMI. Right, I can see that the question is coming in, but I try to not look at it for a moment. Let me jump to stage number 2. And then maybe before we're gonna go on to stage number 4 and 5, so 2 more slides, then I can have a quick look at this question. Stage number 2. After the design and engineering is complete, that means physically, the system manufacturer, the system integrator physically build some systems. That is typically where we go in the FAT or factory acceptance test and do like expert witness. We're going to look over the shoulder of the people testing the system. We're going to look at the FAT procedure. So once the SIS has been built by the system integrator, system manufacturer, stage 2 shall be carried out. That's a normative requirement by edition 2. Typically executed during or along together with the FAT or factory acceptance test as a witness, as already mentioned. And of course, the SRS will be the key document together with the FAT procedure and together with the expert judgment. We will try to make a judgment that the test being carried out on the system, that the system has been built as per the SRS. That is what we have to judge. So what do we need? We need to have the the SIF design, stands for the Safety Integrity Function Design, requirements and the SIL target estimation. Clearly that will come out of the SRS, so we need to have the SRS requirements. Need to also have a look if you were using a safety PLC on the configuration and of course on the interlock application program functionality as per your AP or application program safety requirement specification. And last but not least, we also want to see the FAT result and the report. And a small hint on the report, we also want to see when there is an open item, punch item, open list, whatever you call them. That is what we want to see closing before the system will be shipped. Not waiting until it is shipped on site and then trying to solve some of those items. We want to see that as expert witness before it's going to ship from the factory on site. And the last slide. Now we are already on site. We are with the operating company now. We are at the end user site. So on site, the installation and commissioning is now finished. Before you're going to introduce the hazard in your installation, normative required is stage number 3. So prior to the hazard being presented, the FSA team shall carry out stage 3. And often known in US, let's say, culture, they often call that PSSR, standing for the Pre-Startup Safety Review, or the PSSR. What do I need? If you think about it, if I would go on site, how can I make a judgment and give a blessing saying, hey, that system is allowed to go online. You can introduce a hazard in your factory because I trust the system will work as per requirements. So first of all, we need to see that the HRA or hazard risk analysis has been carried out, which you know was phase number 1. But what is very important for us now, I need to see that all the recommendations coming out of that are implemented and not still open. Because how often have you seen that people go live with systems with even open items? They may make some compromising, they may make some prioritizing in their punch list, but of course, the best thing to do is to try to close all those items before you're going to start up. Second, we need to see the project design change procedures are in place and properly implemented, because we all know once you will go live, there will be some modification requests coming up, and we want to see that those are actually controlled by kind of procedures, and those procedures are implemented, are understood, are in place, etc., etc. If there was a previous function safety assessment, stage 3, then those recommendations again needs to be closed. We don't want to see them open. That the SIS is designed, constructed, and installed as per SRS. Any differences have been identified and solved, and validation activities have been completed with no open items left. Again, very simple story. No open items left. If it has been actually tested during the site acceptance test and there were some comments, we want to see that close before we're going to give the allowance to go online with your hazards in your factory. That all the safety and the operations and the maintenance and the emergency procedures are in place. And that's very important. You may say that's simple, but that's not as simple as you may think of in certain countries with certain cultures, that the employee training, which employee? The people from operation and maintenance who will be responsible and accountable to maintain safety in that plant. Well, they have been trained. They have all the necessary information, procedures are in place, etc. And that the strategies for the implementation of further FSAs are also in place. As Mauro will launch this poll, in the meantime, give me time to read this question.
Okay, in the meantime, I launch the poll. Maybe we can answer to the question later after the poll.
It's okay. I already know the answer is a very simple one, but let's first read the poll. And then before I continue for the question that came in, I will read the question then for everyone, and then I will give you the answer. So first, the poll question. As per the IEC 61511 requirements for stage 4 and 5. That's something we have not discussed yet. That's what we're going to discuss now. That's why the poll question comes before I will give you the answer. The senior competent person needs to be, first of all, none of the below, so we do not know what is it, so we first have to read B. So the senior competent person needs to be independent from the operations and from the maintenance team of the same SIS and needs to be from a different company. That's maybe an easy question if you remember the first poll question, but that's answer B. Answer C needs to be independent as a third-party independent specialist. That is answer C. Answer D is independent from the operation and maintenance team of the same SIS, but can be from the same company. That is answer option number D. And then answer number E, from the regulatory organization in the country, which is often the case, by the way. That is the requirement, which is here the answer E. Or the last option was none of the below. Right, I'll let you time to think about it a little bit more. We have about 50% coming in, so that's not bad.
Okay, Tino, I think I can close now the polling. We have a good number of participants to the polling, so let's...
Okay. At the last minute, there was one answer coming in, just the one we needed.
Yes. Okay.
All right, so share the result. Right, as per the 61511 requirements for stage 4 and 5. Well, we see here that, let's say about 10% was thinking independent from the operation and maintenance team of the same SIS and needs to be from a different company. As you can already imagine, that's not true because the standard doesn't say needs to be from an independent company. All they say, which is the majority, and I'm happy to see this, about 75% is answering here, independent from the operation and maintenance from the same SIS or of the same SIS, but can be from the same company. And that's a very true statement. Imagine you have a large site and you may have 4 different teams for 4 different SIS systems. There is no problem that they will make assessments from each other's systems, but it needs to be from a different operations and a different maintenance from the same SIS. So it can be from the same company. It's not required to be from an independent or even not from a third party independent specialist. Right, I will stop sharing. In the meantime, I will read the question for everyone that came in during the first couple of slides. I got a question here sounding as followed. Regarding the independency of the FSA team, and that's a question to me then, is it not true that for a high SIL level, example, SIL 3, is required independency also from the design company? Now, that question is probably confusing coming from the manufacturer background, which is from the IEC 61508, because then that question would be very true. So, coming first on our topic for today, IEC 61511, the independency is totally irrelevant what level of SIL you will try to achieve. So regardless for SIL 1, 2, 3, or even 4, the independency has nothing to do with the SIL level. It's to do with stage 1, 2, 3, independent from design, stage 4 and 5, independent from the ops and maintenance from the same SIS. Now, as I said, confusing is maybe coming from the background from the IEC 61508, because there, since edition 1, 1997, or edition 2, 2010, a SIL 1 has a less independency requirement than a SIL 2 or than a SIL 3. And I give you the 3 independency levels. For a SIL 1, an independent person can be from the same development team, but an independent person shall make the assessment. For a SIL 2, it's an independent department from maybe the same company, but now it comes for any SIL 3 product that the manufacturer company is producing and releasing. There, the IEC 61508 clearly states that an independent organization, that's the way they are defining it. So an independent organization needs to make a functional safety assessment of that SIL 3 quality of that component. Okay, so we will.
We have a second question. Maybe you can answer to this before to go on.
Okay, the question is: SIL validation is part of which stage of the life cycle? There's nothing to do, whoever asked this question, with assessments. Okay, validation. That's why we call it validation. And now, actually, in the life cycle, I don't know if the life cycle is still coming up or not. It is coming right after your installation, commissioning, and validation. It is a stage, but that stage needs to be assessed as stage number 3. So the phase itself is called installation, commissioning, validation, but it is the stage number 3 that actually will, actually it's coming here. I can show it you now. So the question there about validation, there you see the word validation. It's in stage it's in phase number 5. And in phase number 5, that is here your paragraph or your clause 14 and 15. That's where installation, commissioning, validation will be described. Now, a partially validation, as we also call it partially validation, will be your FAT, which is here paragraph number 13, that is in your phase number 4. But the real validation as the site acceptance test on site will be done in phase number 5, and that is where we have the quality check with the functional safety assessment of stage number 3. Right, I got one extra question coming in very quickly. A client mandated us to use validation from a third party in a recent project. Well, client is the king, right? If the client is requiring that and you have to fulfill to his requirements, it's not coming from the standard. That's what I can tell you. What is coming from the standard? And again, I will repeat, stage number 3, the client could require that stage number 3 needs to be proven. That will be done by a senior competent person independent from the design team. And that's where we made the client said, well, as you maybe don't have the senior competent person from independent from the design team yourself, maybe the client was requiring, actually we will not doubt, we will immediately require a independent company or a third party. So nothing wrong with that, but I can tell you it's not a requirement from the standard. Good. We have 2 more stages to explain to you. Stage number 4. Stage number 4 is completely new by 2016, edition 2, 61511, or for the US by the ISA 61511, 2018. Stage 4, a periodic assessment during operator and maintenance phase is now normative required that is mainly affecting the end user / operating company. The purpose is the following. After gaining experience in the behavior of your SIS system during your operator and maintenance phase, a periodic functional safety assessment known as stage 4, which is shown over here between phase 6 and 7, but actually I copied it. As you see here, all those yellow, that means it's a repeating functional safety assessment. Shall be carried out, so it's a shall normative requirement. And what do we try to find out? That the activities are being carried out according to the assumptions made during the design teams. And that's a very strong statement. Because you may be on a site where the design team was maybe designing the plant 15 years ago. You have done a gap analysis to try to prove your grandfather clause, whatever you call it, and you try to prove how safe your system is behaving. Now, how do you know what assumptions a team has made 15 years ago if it was maybe not all properly recorded or being documented. That could be a challenge. I'm not saying it is, but it could be a challenge. Second, that the requirement within the 65011 for safety management, very important, and verifications are being met. Now, one problem we have with the current edition 2 is, which often comes as a question, how frequent do we have to carry out such an assessment being an end user or an operating company? Well, the frequency, unfortunately, is not mandated by the standard. They just said periodic. You can say, well, that is fine. I'm going to test every 100 years. That's also periodic. Well, I don't think that's a good safety culture. What the regulatory bodies mainly driving around the world, and I give you a very typical and a clear example, HSE stands for Healthy Safety Executive back in the United Kingdom or in Great Britain. Actually, they require every 36 months or every 3 years to carry out a stage 4 assessment on site to the end users. Because the regulatory body in certain countries, they have the power to force the end users to carry out such type of assessment. In different countries where I'm traveling around the world, it varies between 18 months and the longest one I heard was 5 years. So 5 years, again, it depends on the regulatory bodies, or sometimes it also depends on the large corporate offices or companies who have different sites around the world where they have their own internal culture, where they will say how frequent they have to carry this out. Frequency, as I mentioned, can be anything between 1 to 3 years, maybe 5 years, but the more current ones we see and experience is between 1 to 3 years. Typically, the following items are being assessed. Again, think about the following. A senior expert is arriving on site, or maybe he's from a different team from the same site. How will he or she make a judgment that your operator and maintenance are actually carrying out the way it has been specified, the way it has been defined on procedures? So you may think of some interviews with some people. That is one thing. Typically, if I would go in, and now loudly thinking, if I would go in, I would like to see, first of all, their proof test records. How can they prove how consistent they actually have carried out those type of proof test on their safety instrument function? And consistency is a very, let's say, subjective item once you start to discuss, because the report may be the same, or the results may be the same, or the tick box may be ticked the same, but how did he or she, as the engineer, or the tester, or the inspector, or the maintenance engineer, how did he or she came to that result tick box or report? And that's something, again, based on the expert judgment, competency, or experience, how easy will we believe some of the paper that will be shown to us? Now, what also very important for us, we will be very critical on how will you test your systems in terms of proof test coverage. Are you maybe this customer that we will talk to and saying, well, we have to wait until we have a 3 annual or a 5 annual shutdown, and then we are allowed to move the valve? Well, the question is, how much credit will it take for a valve that is moved with no product in the pipeline? And that's something that we need to discuss and think about. Also, the interval. Many people say, oh, with us, we do an interval of 3 years, and then the actual time is 3 years plus so many months, because you may not have time when a 3 years timer was about to be there. That's why with some end users, it's going to be very critical, and it's going to give you a window of 6 months before the target date is due. They will ask you to start to plan the test and to carry it out. And I even know one end user, when you are expiring that time and you were not, by production requirements or by management requirements, you were not allowed to do the test. Well, actually, the safety teams will say you will have to go to shutdown, because they will say your safety performance of your loop cannot be proven. Therefore, they will not take any credit for the potential risk reduction, which is maybe or maybe no longer there. We also want to see the spurious trip or the real trips. If you did have a trip on a safety loop, we want to see the root cause analysis. Why did this trip occur? What was the reason? We want to see this documented. Typically, as everyone knows, production is always winning in this game. Once you have a trip spurious, as an example, or a nuisance trip, means not necessary, it was an unwanted trip, the main target for all the teams around the world is to start up as soon as possible. Don't think too long. Try to start up again because you have to make productions. We all know the pressure is sometimes very high, but we still want to see what was the reason and the justification. Why or why not, and how did your SIV respond? The third last bullet in this list here, we want to see the field failure data of your own equipment, in your own experience, in your own environment. And that is the key issue for edition 2 of the 6, 15, 11. We want to see the confidence factors because it's all about the confidence factors. We want to see the useful life of your equipment, if you kept the record at all. And we want to see the mission time. I can tell you now, if you start to do this type of investigation as an expert judgment, how often do we come across an end user that today has no record on the useful life of his final element, call it the shutdown valves. As long as the valve is moving or working when it is required to work, everyone a happy family. Well, typically a useful life of such a final element has a reason. We don't achieve a safety culture by only start to replace an equipment that is failing or broken. That will not be the safety culture that the IEC 61511 wants to see, not even from the first edition. But we all know reality is of course different. People come with some data from a generic database, they will start to make calculation / estimation, and they all start to believe the numbers on paper, what they present to the inspectors. That cannot be the purpose of a safety culture of the 6, 15, 11. And last but not least, of course, we want to see your SIL verification reports. We want to see how you come to that decision. And of course, that will all be linked to your failure data and to your proof test coverage / interval / consistency, etc., etc. One more slide to go, stage 5. Totally new by edition 2. Before and after the modification, stage 5 shall be carried out. Although the modification, FSA stage 5, is shown graphically in the standard only below phase number 7, called the modification. I did a cut, copy, paste, and I put it twice there to visually, clearly show you, you have to carry out before and you have to do it again after. And that's something what the standard is clearly normative requiring. So once the modification activity is complete and before you're going to continue to carry on, stage 5 shall be carried out. Typically, the following items are being assessed and being confirmed. I think anyone, a little bit of experience will know what MOC means, management of change. That's kind of a culture with your request, your approval cycle, impact analysis, all of that, authorization, of course, all of that needs to be very clearly followed and documented. That a competent engineer will carry out such type of modification, I think that goes without saying, because we need to guarantee the safe state during the modification. That means the expert judgment is also part of this game. The senior expert judgment needs to make a judgment before the competent engineer will carry out the work and after it has been done again. And last but not least, very important for safety culture will be the as-built documentation needs to be up to date. So stage 5, after the modification is done, part of the role is we want to see the modification has been documented as-built documentation before we're going to allow to start up again. And that's a very crucial statement from the standards. Right, I saw some questions coming in, and I go back to stage 4. Another question sound as followed. Can proof test frequency help to decide the functional safety assessment stage 4 frequency? It's actually a very good question, and I will back up one more slide that I will go into here. And the question is as followed. Can the proof test frequency in here actually influence the stage 4 frequency? Well, I think if I'm now trying to make a simple answer on this, assume that your proof test interval would be, and I give you like a number, I give you 5 years. The proof test interval is 5 years. Very clearly that if your functional safety assessment from the regulatory body would be in Great Britain and would be, for instance, 3 years, that means, does it make sense really to send in a new, let's say, in the worst case, there would be 2 functional safety assessment, independent judgment already carried out based still on the old results of the performance of that loop. So clearly, I would say, logically, your proof test interval frequency shall be at least shorter than your functional safety assessment frequency and not vice versa. So clearly, I think it's a very clever question. Whoever did this, I would say bravo. I think you are from Italy, but I would say yes, it would make sense that the frequency of your proof test frequency would be shorter than the frequency of your stage 4 frequency. Okay, conclusion. I would like to give my last comments here. Do not underestimate the importance of functional safety assessment. Do not think it's just some formality or some paperwork. There is a lot more reason why edition 2 is so strict and so strong on making all 5 assessment normative requirements. Of course, it all depends on the competency of the teams, of the people working on it, of the team making the expert judgment. And last statement, last bullet, no one in the industry complies to the IC 65011 without evidence that all applicable functional safety assessment has been carried out. And that's a very strong personal statement from myself, saying do not even think you're going to comply if you skip some of those assessments, which still today is very often common, let's say, practice, that people say, oh, we skip stage 1, oh, we skip stage 2, but we covered in stage 3. I said, well, how do you think you can prove compliance to the standard? Every single stage is a normative requirement. I got 2 more slides from my side, then I'm going to hand over the word to my colleague, to Mauro. Right, as GMI, Functional Safety Department, we actually can support you with the following services. We do all this lifecycle support from PHRA to LOPA, to determination, SIL verification, SRS even. And of course, one of the latest more required services from our side that we are very busy today is the functional safety management and also even assessments, helping some projects, some clients on site to make assessments. And then we are the third party coming in, but we do have some expertise on helping you to go there. And of course, we also have another team helping us here with the 62443, which we have not mentioned at all, but that's the cybersecurity or industrial security service and assessments that we can do. As Mauro was saying, we used to do about 18 to 20 trainings a year, but I can imagine this year we will not reach that number. I can tell you now that I'm very, very, very happy and excited because next week, and I would say touch wood, but next week I'm gonna run my first face-to-face training again, and I will do it in the Netherlands. And we do have, I think, 4 or 5 trainings following still this year. One of them is an online training, which we will do online the training, and then the exam will be done supervised by a human. So you still are required to go into a specific location because we still have to supervise the paper written exam, but the training can be done online. But of course, majority of the people that we talk to, they do require a face-to-face training. And in some countries, we are allowed, as I said, next week, I will do my first face-to-face. That's the first bullet over here. That's the FS Engineer or Functional Safety Engineer SIS Competency Review Program from our institute that we support here called TOV Rhineland. We have the same training for cybersecurity. We also do the cybersecurity risk assessment. We have done an awful lot customized in-house trainings, mainly everything was online over internet, was all remotely, and seminars, as we do now here, the webinar. There will be more to follow. And last but not least, if you don't have this book, I would say send us an email, request this book, because that book will have chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 7 is my own chapter, which I wrote. I was the author for the 65011 edition 2. And chapter 8 is a safety requirement specification with some examples. And of course, all the other chapters are in light of safety and functional safety, and also with 61508 and 61511 covered. So there are about 9 chapters in there. And that book is edition 4 out. That's something which is available. Right, I will stop sharing and I will leave Mauro to take over and to share his document, and then he most likely will be able to control it.
Yes.
I've got another question coming in.
Yes.
As you prepare, Mauro. Self-verification report review requirements for stage 4. Will it be design stage report review? Well, I think it's a specific naming convention that you may have out of your experience. The standard is not written for called a design stage report review, but quite frankly, it could be very well true that your design stage report review could be named or could be seen as your activity, as your verification report. So yes, that could be the source that's needed for a stage 4. Thank you, Mauro. You can continue.
Okay, I close this. Yes, just you were mentioning about our seal manual. Okay, this is just to confirm that you can read it online through GMI website, or through the website. You can also ask to get a copy as well. You can send us an email, as Tino was saying. Now we have so let me say that the main part of the webinar is over, but as said in the beginning, we collected some, let me say, frequently asked questions, and we will go through. It's just 4 questions plus additional question in case you have some of them. So it's a long question and very technical. So Tino, I would leave you to read it. Just
okay, first read it, Mauro. Okay. We should perform functionality assessment after the phase sys design and engineering. Meanwhile, this one also includes the FAT. Correct. Is it acceptable to make the FSA, the functionality assessment, after engineering and internal test before the FAT, because it allows to painlessly realize some corrections? Okay, I think I remember that question. Right, so think about the following. You are designing a system, and you are now, let's say, the system integrator that maybe came from a system integrator or maybe from a system manufacturer office. Now, clearly, no one will stop you to make an assessment already in your internal tests. I mean, clearly, as you already mentioned in the question itself, you call it painlessly. It's always good to do as much as testing before you're going to do the test witness with the client. In other words, after you have done your internal testing, maybe you call it your internal FAT, I wouldn't mind to make already a judgment to find out how good this test has been performed and how much evidence can you prove the system has been designed as per requirement specification. Now, my first bullet as a hint or an advice. The IEC 61511 standard must be seen as a good engineering practice guidelines. What I'm trying to say is, please do not read this as black and white. I said, because it was not described, don't do it. No, it's an engineering practice guideline as a good recommendation, nothing more, nothing less. It's not prescriptive. It doesn't tell you exactly how and what to do. It will tell you, you shall do this, but then the really nitty-gritty details will not be explained in the standard. That is why I'm saying, do not read it black and white. Second bullet, clearly the purpose of such a stage 2 assessment is to make an expert judgment from an independent person not involved in the design team. Needs to find some evidence, as if you go back to the stage 2, which I showed you in the slides before. So you will have the slides by PDF as Mauro promised. And by, I think tomorrow, maybe the next coming days, it will be online. So you can listen again to what I explained you on that stage number 2. But clearly the documents enabled to make a judgment will need to be clear, giving some input to the expert judgment enabled to make his decision, he or she decision. So it is certainly acceptable to carry out the stage 2 already after the internal test, as I told you, as long as there is another one at the final FAT. What I'm trying to say is stage 2 would not cover if you would only do internal or the pre-FAT test. It needs to be covering also the final FAT. And why is that? Because the final FAT is your paragraph 13, which is a normative paragraph from part number 1 from the 6.15.11, and therefore, and only therefore, it needs to be carried out stage 2 after that activity is finished. I think that's a very clear answer. All right, Mauro, you can go on.
Yeah, let's go on to the next question. I read it for you. What is the scope of different stage of functional safety assessment?
Okay. Although I have answered before, I thought it was important maybe to just give you a very quick summary again of what we just explained. It must be clear that the objective of all 5 stages is to come to an expert judgment. Nothing more, nothing less. That means expert judgment, as the word is saying, from an expert, needs to judge that the work activity carried out and proven on paper and proven by a test or a verification report is good to go, yes or no, will give the necessary risk reduction. Again, very briefly, for stage 1, 2, 3, needs to be independent from a design. For stage 4 and 5, needs to be independent from the ops and maintenance. And I think, to be quite frankly with you, what is the biggest challenge in the industry for today and for the future? It's stage 4 and 5. Because stage 4 and 5, that's the end users. Stage 1, 2, 3, well, I can call it more the specialist teams are still involved, are still working, are still doing the design. They have done many projects maybe before, so they know how to do that. But it's like the long-term end users. You are with the end users, you are in the plant for 15 years, 20 years. Guys who are very experienced have may retire, new teams are coming in, and that's where the challenge will be also for the future. Yes, Mauro.
Good. So here we have 3 questions in one. What is the outcome of FSA? Is there any certificate? And how does a project be improved as 61511 compliance?
All right. Well, the outcome of an FSA is a clearly documented result/report, right? That is what we call those stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 investigation/decision/expert judgment. We typically call this a report. And in that report will be written evidence, whoever was responsible to write it, will be written evidence on how he or she came to the decision that 1, the functional safety, and 2, the safety integrity of that system, of that SIF or safety loop has been met. There are many factors, of course, second bullet here, there are many factors, of course, that will contribute to comply or not to comply to the in totality of the 6.15.11. Of course, what is here the key issue to focus on? Your functional safety management and the quality of it and how adequate you're using it. And the functional safety assessment, again, and the quality evidence of it. That will be the success story of your project. Have you achieved? Are you compliant to 6.15.11, yes or no? And often here, last bullet, the end users/process owners required to certify the SIS or the SIS or the SIF, safety instrument function. Well, often that is the case. So we often hear that end users, they want to have a kind of evidence that the quality of their system achieves a certain SIL integrity or safety integrity. So often we will use that as a verification evidence that the system will achieve a quality of a risk reduction performance. And that could be used, that type of document could be used also in your total requirements for your functional safety assessment of that system. So in other words, we're going to use that type of, let's say, documentation, certification, etc., to prove that all the evidence of devices, of the instruments are suitable for a specific performance. And of course, there is too many documents here to mention. It's not only that one, let's say, SIL report, there will be a lot more than that, but that's all what we will need to make a judgment. Thank you, Mauro.
Okay, so let me go here. This is, I can take the word here just to confirm what I said in the beginning. We are doing a lot of webinars, in this period, and we have just decided to continue in the next few months. So just monitor our website to check out whether you find some other topics which are of interest for you. Again, topics will cover functional safety, intrinsic safety, as well as some applications. So just monitor our website to check out if you find something else different. And now we have a very, very last question for you, or better, maybe Tino.
Yes,
okay, after this question, there is another question. So let me raise this question. This is quite easy to answer. Can you?
In the meantime, I'll read the last question that came in the
Yes.
And the question sounds as follows. Is there any specific format for a report mentioned? And you typed FAS, I think you want to type FSA, Food Safety Assessment. So I think your question is related to, is there any specific format or report mentioned for an FSA result as per the standards? Well, the answer is simply no. There is no specific format being mentioned. And I think I know why you asked this question, because you can imagine it's all down to the subjectivity / experience / the expert, let's say, competency, what type of report he or she will deliver. Of course, we do not in our webinars, not even in our training courses, we don't give templates away free of charge, because this is our project work which we are currently doing. I can only say, to be quite, let's say, proud of the work that we are delivering, I have seen reports called Food Safety Assessment reports from different companies, different, let's say, experts. Honestly speaking, and I will be very polite now, the paper was not even word that the report was written on it. The report said totally nothing. Lots of blah, 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 lots of paper filling. There was nothing on there. I'm not saying our reports are so good, but at least we are trying to do our best. And I can also see the trend in the market. Many people jump on this, and many people say, oh, we also deliver reports. Well, depending on who is the expert that actually wrote the report for you, what is the content? And again, I'm not giving you any names of companies who is good or not. I'm only saying we all do our best. We all try to help you in the industry. But unfortunately, there is still a lot of jungle out there in the industry. Right. Wow.
Okay, Tino, I will stop the polling and I will show the result, and I don't need your support to say that the answer is correct. So thank you very much to all for your feedback. Thank you very much to all for your time. And as said, we look forward to have you on board maybe in one of the next webinar, or even better in one of the next training that Tino will hold around the world. So keep monitor at our website. Also there we have dedicated page to show when and where we are running this functional safety training with Tino. And again, hopefully you will be on board on one of these trainings. So again, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day for those who has still part of the day in front of them. I'm just closing this and going home right now. So thank you very much again, and see you next time.
All right, Maro, thank you. And thank you, GMI. Thank you for all the participants. Close this. You have to stop share to stop the share of the screen.
Yes. Here.
Okay, well, that's it. Thank you, Maro. See you soon. Speak to you soon, wherever. And
thank you to you, and thanks to all. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Oh, bye-bye.